Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Lowland Greenhouse here at Carlton Carnivores. Got another species spotlight for you guys, a tropical pitcher plant, and perhaps one of the weirdest species in the genus as well, both in how it's shaped and how it lives. This is Nepenthes clipeata, the shield-leafed pitcher plant. And just right off the bat, you can probably see it is a very, very funky looking plant overall. A unique species that is really not comparable to anything else in the genus, really. You could compare it maybe a little bit to like campanulata because of the shape of the pitchers and kind of the broad leaves and cliffside habitat, but even then it's really not similar at all. So this is a species that was first found in the very late 1800s and described. It grows only on the mountain Mount Kalam in Borneo, kind of north-central Borneo, and found roughly between 600 and 900 meters in elevation, so not quite up to 3,000 feet. So it's kind of it's a lowland to warm intermediate growing plant. This species in the wild naturally lives either in kind of shallow clumps of leaf litter and detritus that's built up underneath trees and such, or in cracks and crevices on cliff faces, because Mount Kalam is a very interesting place. The sides of the mountain fall off onto very slick, smooth cliffs, basically on all sides of the mountain. So the only way to actually get up there is to use ladders to climb up past that slick area to the top where there's a little more flat growth. This species is only known from that one mountain, and even when it was first discovered, populations were low, very scattered and rare on the mountain, and only numbered maybe a few thousand individuals. Since that time, this has unfortunately become one of the rarest species of tropical pitcher plant in the wild because unscrupulous collecting by poachers and such has pretty much wiped out the entire species on that mountain. The handful of plants that might still be left are those that grow on those slick cliff faces in little crevices and such, in places where people can't get to them from up above on the flatter part of the mountain, and they can't quite get ladders up to that height either. So they've remained there only because they are simply inaccessible by humanity. All other plants have been removed by collectors. Luckily, there is work being done on establishing this species in cultivation, trying to crossbreed different lineages to produce genetically variable seedlings that can be stored in cultivation just in case, and maybe in the future, if we can protect the mountain, restored back to the wild. But this is a plant that grows to roughly, the vine will grow to about 6-7 feet in length, and it's relatively short, stocky, and thick. The inner nodes stay short. This plant never really develops a long climbing vine like its relatives because, again, it grows on cliff faces. It's relatively low growing. It wants to hug that cliff face, wants to hug the ground. There's nothing for them to climb up into, and it's not really conducive to have that long vine waving about in wind and storms, which might knock them off the cliff face. So it stays short and squat. Those bases, the stem itself and the base of the leaves, the long, thin petioles, are covered in these brown, fuzzy hairs. Those hairs are also on the undersides of the leaves and along the edges as well. It's a very fuzzy, velvety feeling plant. And then those long petioles lead out to what the plant is named for. Clipeata, or clipeus, means shield-shaped or round. And the leaves, indeed, are extremely round, almost perfectly so in fully mature plants, in fact, unlike almost any other species in the genus. And they especially retain that round shape because of where that tendril comes out of. Unlike most Nepenthes, where of course the tendril comes off the end of the leaf to the pitcher, these guys, it drops straight out either the middle of the leaf or about 2/3 of the way down towards the end of the leaf, just drops right out of the middle. Very what's known as peltate. So it makes this little dimple on the upper surface of the leaf, and then below drops down and connects to the pitcher. So because of that, the pitchers often look kind of like they're floating right next to the leaf, with the tendril kind of hidden and the pitcher just kind of sitting right next to it. The pitchers themselves, very, very odd. They tend to be, they can grow up to about a foot in height, 30 centimeters or so, and they have an ovular to globose rounded base, usually the bottom third to half of the pitcher. And from there, shrinks rapidly. There's a very distinctive hip on the pitcher where it constricts very, very readily, becomes very narrow, and then the upper portion is either cylindrical or usually slightly funnel-shaped up to the mouth. The entire outside of the pitcher also has those small fuzzy brown hairs, and then the mouth, usually fairly rounded. There's a slight slope upward to a short but distinctive neck. It has a small round peristome that surrounds the mouth, and then this lid that kind of remains fairly close to the mouth oftentimes and is kind of domed. The coloration of the pitchers usually is fairly clean. It's cream or greenish. Light mottling of red or brownish might be on the outside, but oftentimes the pitchers are almost entirely white on the exterior. The peristome may be simple, yellowish to cream, or it may be striped in red. And then the inside, very pale white with red and purple mottling. And then underneath the lid is actually where most of the color on this pitcher is. There's a whole bunch of red mottling right underneath that lid. And so that helps attract insects up underneath there. They're feeding on nectar, and then as they're running around, they fall down off the lid into the pitcher. And then that constriction at the bottom, of course, maintains everything within the digestive zone of that pitcher. So this species, unlike a lot of species in the genus, only produces more or less this one type of pitcher. They may become more pronounced globose in the base and funnel-shaped above as the pitchers get bigger, as the plant gets older. But overall, it's the same shape, the same structure throughout the plant's life cycle because, again, it doesn't produce a climbing vine. It's just kind of a scrambler, so it has no need to create a different structured upper pitcher. The only thing that might really change is when the pitchers are young, they may have more of their wings on the front of the pitcher, and then those are lost as the plant matures. And the pitcher becomes pretty much wingless once it's fully mature, fully grown. Now, because of where this species grows, it can be a somewhat more of a challenging plant to grow in cultivation as well. It does not tolerate really wet, sphagnous soils like a lot of other species may. These plants actually grow best in more of a mineral soil. So if you see here, now this is a newly repotted plant, so all the soil is very loose, so if I tilt it too much, that's all going to come falling out. But I have it, there's a bit of sphagnum in this mix as well, but most of the soil is actually akadama here. It's that fired clay. It's not very tough, it can crumble a little bit, but it holds up and it holds shape just enough to kind of retain moisture and retain a lot of aeration in the soil. If you can get akadama, that is probably some of the best stuff to grow clipeata in. Because it has a little bit of minerals, nutrients that the plant can use, but otherwise is fairly inert, slightly acidic, and so best for the plant. That soil should be kept just moist at all times. It should never be sopping wet. If it dries out completely, of course, too, it will also kill the plant, so just kind of intermediate. And then while this plant does technically grow in a lowland environment, its exposure on the cliffs means it experiences slightly cooler conditions than your average lowland plant, so it actually grows better in intermediate conditions. Because of that open exposure, it's not quite as sensitive to humidity once you acclimate it. Those hairs also help with that. So it'll grow in it will grow in high humidity like other species, of course, as long as there's good airflow, but you can also get it down to 30–40% humidity, and the plant will probably do fine. But temperatures of roughly 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, dropping down to 65 or 70 degrees Fahrenheit at night. So slightly cooler than a true lowland plant, but still moderately warm. You don't want to give this highland conditions. It won't like that, but those intermediate to lowland conditions are best for it. And then, of course, because it is a cliffside plant, these guys are exposed to a lot of sunlight in nature, so they expect very, very bright conditions. So the strongest lights that you can give them indoors, or if you can give them filtered sun through a window or even hanging outside, they will appreciate that. Now, this is a fairly large plant once it's mature, not because, again, the vine only gets to maybe 6–7 feet long, so compared to a lot of other Nepenthes, it's not huge that way, but because these leaves can be up to a foot, foot and a half across each, and then plus the petiole and so on, the plant can be 3 or 4 feet across, and those big leaves will cover a large surface area. So you need a lot of good space for it to actually grow and spread out. So that space is one thing. The soil detail is another that makes it a little more difficult. Intermediate temperatures actually suit a lot more people's households, so that's one easy part for these guys. If you can get it, if you can give it all those conditions that it's really looking for, though, it's a slow grower, so if you get a small seedling, it'll take 5–8 years before it reaches full maturity. But then hopefully maybe you can start helping preserve this plant by making it more common in cultivation. Like all Nepenthes, it is dioecious, so the plants are either male or female, and you have to have one of each to get pure species seeds, although there are a lot of cool clipeata hybrids out there as well that may be even easier to grow than these guys. I've got several that I've helped create myself. They're certainly interesting to grow. That odd shape of the pitchers and that pale coloration usually comes through in its hybrids as well, especially the bright reds underneath the lid. So a lot of interesting traits that it can pass on. But if you can get pure species, and if you can get it to bloom and help produce new seeds to spread through cultivation, that's always fun. And it is certainly one of the most unique looking species that you can get in the trade. Just make sure that it is from a reputable source. There are several Wistuba clones that are out there that we know are good. Christian Klein clones like mine, and a couple of others that have been produced in cultivation and not poached from the wild. So if you can get one of those, you can be assured that it actually came from a reputable source. And amazingly, quite a few of them are female, so good chance you may be able to get a plant that produces seeds. Now that's all that I have for that species at the moment. I'm not sure which species I will be covering next, but I certainly have quite a few others that I'll be dealing with soon, repotting and so on, and those will come up in the queue. But if you enjoy educational videos like this, learning about the different species, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click that black bell so you don't miss any videos that may be coming up. Like the video, watch all the way through also to make sure those watch hours are really important for channel growth. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below the video. If you'd like to learn more, there's the database and blog on my website at carltoncarnivores.com, information about the plants and animals that I work with. And I'm also always posting photos and videos on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Carlton Carnivores, so more information there and cool plants and animals to look at. If you'd like to help support in a more financial manner, there's the website shop at carltoncarnivores.com. You can buy plants and seeds, resin jewelry, and other things. You can also join as a Patreon member, where you can get early access to the videos, monthly access to the seed contests that I do for things that I may not have offered in the shop at all. Or you can donate at coffee. All the links for these things will be in the video description below. But until next time, I'm Hawken Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.